Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Once again, welcome to another live stream of reading a short Christmas story. I am very informal this morning because it is about 8:30. I should have just written on the when I'd go on live to be 8:30 because I still had fiddling to do. But yes, very informal this morning. I figured why not be comfortable? I'll just stay in my pajamas and leave it that way, you know? They're new pajamas, too. Really nice. Amber got me some last year for Christmas. Now she got me another color. Oh, and I really like them. Anyway, I thought I'd start off this morning's live stream. Now, I was fiddling last night. Stayed up way too late because I was quite frustrated why my sound wasn't working right. And I don't know if anyone was noticing in yesterday's live stream. I was mentioning something about 5.1 sound. I think that was messing me up, but I also proceeded to uninstall and reinstall plugins and all sorts of things, and ended up having to remove the inputs for the vocal and guitar and re-add them, copying over the settings. But at any rate, I think it's working. Please, if anyone's in the live chat and can type, let me know if you hear anything and let me know that you see things fine. The audio and video, the video looks really good on my side, so not that that means everything. It's nice when things look and seem okay, but I thought we'd start off with a little singing. I was listening to an audiobook yesterday, I think by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and it was a little part about it reminding, what was it called? Life Together, I think might be the book title. And there was a part about it talking about communal worship and time together, and just reminded, appreciated the principle about reading scripture and singing, worshiping through the Psalms, or Psalter as he said. And I just thought, why don't we just do a couple songs first? Before I do that, hold on, as usual. Might take care of something first. So I hope the audio is working fine on my side. My OBS software is showing my meters moving, so I think it's okay. Yeah, again, if anyone watching has the live chat, sorry for fiddling with the mic, please feel free to comment that things are okay. But we'll go over to the song I was thinking about. Was a couple of the short songbook songs, Evening and Morning, and also From the Rising of the Sun. So we'll start off a little slow. No, oh no. What did I do with my tuner? Sorry, folks. I know this guitar is out of tune. So let me go grab that. I see it on the table. Okay, we have this now. I tell you, I just wasn't fully ready this morning. A professional would have done this already. But this way I can still come across as amateur enough that we have low expectations. Okay, let's go over to, and I hope the guitar is working too. We'll go over to Evening and Morning. Oh, I can turn that fell off. Okay, ready? Evening and morning, at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He hath delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me. As for me, I will call on God, and the Lord shall save me, and the Lord shall save me. Evening and morning, at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. And also we'll go over to From the Rising of the Sun to bring our energy up a little bit. I sound like an exercise coach. And again, I don't know that there's that many of you watching live right now, maybe only one, but that's okay. This will go on the channel for anyone to view later, as always. From the rising of the... Okay, there we go. From the Rising of the Sun. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, the name of the Lord is to be praised. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, the name of the Lord is to be praised. Praise ye the Lord. Praise ye the Lord. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, the name of the Lord is to be praised. My mouse isn't working. Come on, little fella. Where are you going? There we go. Oh, good morning, Zion. Or good evening where you are. Getting on to bedtime. That's because you're getting to bed earlier than you tend to, right? Wink, wink. And the last one I had just picked, and sorry folks if anyone had any requests, which I don't again think maybe it's only you, Zion, for the live part of this live stream. But it wasn't necessarily about people picking the songs. I just had a couple. And the last one here I thought we'd do well, I don't know if it's necessarily thought of as a Christmas hymn, but it leads. It's one of the kind that I like, where it leads from Jesus' birth through his life, ministry, to his death, and then resurrection. It's just a whole story right in there. And hang on one second. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. That was rude. Okay. Hello, Cindy. Someone else appeared. Let's go to that one. Who is he in yonder stall? Let me see which key. Who is he in yonder stall? To the Lord. Let's do this key. No, can I do G flat? Who Let's see. I think we'll do that. Okay. Okay, hold on a second now. Xeon was calling me. I wasn't cluing in here. Oh my, was the delay that long? Well, thank you for calling at all. Has my audio been muted the whole time? Like, are you guys hearing me at all? I just assumed the last, I just assumed it was the last song because... Aww. Okay, but were you just not hearing me on the last song? Because that would make sense. I had the wrong audio inputs. And my apologies. But were the other songs working? Am I talking right now? I'm just gonna wait and see. Okay, the audio is on now. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think the last song, though, I was just miming, right? It was going so well, but that's okay. We'll just start over. And before I get talking too long, I trust it's working now. And the guitar. I'll have to get this set up better. Make sure things are good next time. clean things all up on this computer. It's not my usual laptop that I'm using, so I'd blame it on that, but I could have done a little more preparedness. But anyway, now that's done, let's get back to it. Who is he in yonder stall, at whose feet the shepherds fall? Who is he in deep distress, fasting in the wilderness? 'Tis the Lord, a wondrous story. 'Tis the Lord, the King of glory. At his feet we humbly fall. Crown him, Lord of all. Who is he the people bless for his words of gentleness? Who is he to whom they bring all the sick and sorrowing? 'Tis the Lord, a wondrous story. 'Tis the Lord, the King of glory. At his feet we humbly fall. Crown him, Lord of all. Who is he that stands and weeps at the grave where Lazarus sleeps? Who is he the gathering throng greet with loud triumphant song? 'Tis the Lord, a wondrous story. 'Tis the Lord, the King of glory. At his feet we humbly fall. Crown him, Lord of all. Lo, at midnight who is he? Prays in dark Gethsemane. Who is he on yonder tree? Dies in grief and agony. 'Tis the Lord, a wondrous story. 'Tis the Lord, the King of glory. At his feet we humbly fall. Crown him, Lord of all. Who is he that from the grave comes to heal and help and save? Who is he that from his throne rules through all the world alone? 'Tis the Lord, a wondrous story. 'Tis the Lord, the King of glory. At his feet we humbly fall. Crown him, Lord of all. And there we conclude our singing time to prepare us here. And my little whoopsie mix-ups on the audio side of things. Maybe I'll just turn that off for now, since I should be done. And now, let us pick up 20 minutes in, and I don't even know, this song's probably twice or a little more longer than the other ones I did. Ooh, coffee. Ooh, not quite tasting as good as it was earlier. Okay, let us get on to the story. This one is called Worst and Best Christmas. And I don't know if Rebekah has a series. If you saw the thumbnail, this is copyright 2020, so this is pretty recent. The cover has a picture of a little girl. And it says Rhea and the Gang, 1939. I hope it's Rhea. Maybe I'll say a full name at some point. I assume that's like a nickname. So, 1939. Oh! Rebekah doesn't often do dates in her books. I think she likes ye olden days. Like, ye olden days. I mean, just stuff in the earlier 30s, 40s and stuff. I'm pretty certain I've asked her before, well, when is this story set? She says, oh, she kind of gives a non-committal answer. But anyway, let us begin, because this could take a little longer than the other ones. Sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea or coffee or water. Speaking of water, I should really just get some hot water. Aiden, do you suppose there's any warm water in the kettle that you could pour maybe into my little cup? When you get a moment? Not right. There's no rush. He's busy drawing something on our little board calendar. Worst and best Christmas. Tomorrow is Christmas Day, Rhea exclaimed for the upteenth time that morning. I guess R-I-A. Would it be Raya? I should have asked. Well, I'm going to stick to that. Rhea. Is it really? Johnny asked in feigned surprise. I thought it was the 4th of July. Rhea wrinkled her nose at her brother and giggled. She was well used to being teased. She should be with 4 older brothers and 11 older boy cousins, not to mention Phil and the other 5 lads who made up the rest of the gang. Skipping down the stairs, Rhea paused in the kitchen to sniff the cookies her mother was baking. Oh, she exclaimed suddenly, I forgot to wrap! But she left the rest of the sentence unfinished and, whirling around, raced back upstairs, nearly colliding with Ed and Chris as they were coming out of their room. Aiden, you could turn on the light if you need light. Where were we? Oh. Whoa, Ed called. What's the hurry? Forgot to wrap, and the door of Rhea's room slammed shut behind her, cutting off the rest of her sentence. Maybe we should find out what she's up to, 13-year-old Chris suggested, taking a step after their sister. Ed, the oldest of the Mitchell children at 19, caught his younger brother's arm and stopped him. Whoops, and I switched stories. Whoops, there. Leave her alone, Chris, he ordered. After all, it is Christmas Eve. Busy in her room, Rhea pulled out her mother's present and set about wrapping it. When it was finished and sitting on the floor before her, looking quite festive with its wrapping of green with a pert red bow on top, Rhea gazed at it and began counting on her fingers. I have the twins' gifts wrapped and under the tree. Ed's is there too. I don't know if I should put Chris's there yet or not. Sometimes he peeks. Daddy's is under the tree. Now, do I have the rest of the gifts for the gang and Grandma and Grandpa's gifts? She did. All were now wrapped and ready. Slipping her mother's gift under her bed, Rhea left her room to race through the hall and down the stairs. Mama, she asked eagerly, when are we leaving tomorrow? Mrs. Mitchell looked up from the gingerbread men she was icing. Oh, I don't know. I would guess around mid-morning. Why? I just wondered. And Rhea moved into the living room and stood looking at the tree. It was a large one. The top nearly brushed the ceiling with large, full branches, filling the corner of the room. Decorated with lights and ornaments, its glories far surpassed any previous tree the Mitchells had had. Rhea, at least, was certain the smell of the pine penetrated. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry. I put a period where I shouldn't put a period. Let me go back. Decorated with lights and ornaments, its glories far surpassed any previous tree the Mitchells had had. Rhea, at least, was certain. The smell of the pine penetrated to the farthest corners. Underneath the wonderful tree were the presents. Gaily wrapped in bright colors, the many different shapes and sizes of the gifts drew Rhea's eyes like so many magnets, and she dropped down on the floor before the bright fire to look at the tree and the gifts. She could hardly wait for tomorrow to come. It was around mid-morning when Rhea, preparing to go outside, suddenly pressed her hand to her side and gave a soft groan. "Are you all right?" Jimmy asked, buttoning up his coat. "What happened?" Grimacing a little, Rhea pulled her coat on. "I don't know. My side just hurt." "Eat too many cookies?" her brother teased. "I haven't eaten any today," she replied, still with a frown. Though all her brothers enjoyed teasing, they could also be sympathetic and protective. "Do you still want to go for a walk?" Jimmy wondered. Rhea nodded. Maybe a walk would make her feel better. Besides, the others were waiting for them. Calling goodbye to Mrs. Mitchell, Jimmy and Rhea joined Chris, Ed, and Johnny out on the front walk. Mr. Mitchell had declined to go with them, saying he was going to read the paper before the fire and enjoy the quiet. "Where shall we go?" Johnny asked. "Let's go see the shop windows," Rhea suggested, forgetting her side as the pain eased up. Soon the 5 Mitchell children were on their way down the sidewalk to the center of Plainville. Oh, that's a cute name. They were all in merry spirits, and talk and laughter went with them that cold December day. Speaking of cold, you want cold? It's minus 31 Celsius here this morning. "Do you think we'll get more snow, Ed?" Chris asked, looking at the half or an inch or so that lay on the ground around them. Oh, that would be so little. "We got about 6 or so inches a couple mornings ago." "Oh, sometime," Ed answered carelessly. "I meant tonight, before Christmas." Ed looked at the overcast sky. The clouds were tinged with gray. He shrugged. "I don't know. Grandpa would be the one to ask, or Dad." "It sure would be fun to have a good snowfall for tomorrow," Johnny remarked. "Sure would," echoed Jimmy. Aiden said, "I want a good snowfall." "Why?" Rhea asked sweetly. "Did you want to make snow angels?" This brought a laugh from her brothers, and for several minutes they joked and teased one another good-naturedly. Arriving in downtown, their walk slowed as they admired the shop windows, which were decked out in full holiday glory. This was not the first time the Mitchell 5 had walked the downtown sidewalks and looked in the shop windows, though it was the first time without any other members of the gang with them. "Look, Ed, a train set," Jimmy pointed out. "Don't you want that for Christmas?" "I'd still have my train set if you hadn't tried to ride on the train when you were 3 and busted it," Ed pretended to growl and gave his brother a friendly shove. "How do you know it wasn't Johnny that sat on it?" Chris questioned. Ed snorted. "Because Johnny was too busy trying to step on all the houses to see if they would smash." And boy, did they, Johnny grinned and backed away from his older brother. Their laughter was suddenly interrupted. Clutching her side, Rhea gave a sudden groan and leaned against the side of the store. Her face grew pale, and it was all she could do to keep from crying. "Rhea, what is it?" Ed asked, bending over her in concern. Dropping down in front of her, Jimmy asked, "Is it the same pain you had before we left?" Rhea could only nod, her lips pressed tightly together to keep back a cry of pain. "Where does it hurt, Rhea?" Ed asked quietly while Johnny and Chris gathered around. 1 second. We had some of the kids picked up a runny nose, and so we're fighting that off. But I wouldn't say this is more than the usual. You know, it's mornings. You gotta blow some more sometimes, especially for me in winter. So, but that's a side note. Just in case you wonder why I pause every now and then. I mean, it's kind of obvious by the thumbnail, but that's the reason. Just tend to blow more often in winter. But, sorry. Was it there? Yeah, my side, Rhea whimpered, holding both hands over the place and catching her breath as the sharp pain once more shot through her. "Johnny," Ed ordered quickly, "run home and tell Mother and Dad, and get the car. It will be faster than carrying her, We'll start back the way we came. Now move." That last was unnecessary, for already Johnny was half a block away. By now the tears were starting to trickle down Ria's pale cheeks, though she tried to blink them back. All she wanted was her mother and dad in her own bed. Stooping, Ed picked his sister up in his arms and set off down the street, Jimmy and Chris following. Ria had buried her face in Ed's coat collar, clinging to him with one hand while keeping the other pressed to her side. Hardly had the group left shopping district when a car pulled up beside them and a voice called out, "What happened? Ria hurt?" It was young Dr. Earl Friesen. "Ria has a sharp pain in her side," Jimmy explained. "Johnny went to get the car, but we didn't want to wait that long." "Well, pile in, all of you. This car will be faster than Johnny, even if he's one of the fastest runners I've seen." No time was wasted obeying those orders, and soon the car was in motion. "We'll pick up Johnny if we see him," Dr. Earl said. This they did, only 2 blocks from the Mitchell home. Ria, still with face hidden, was carried into the house in her brother's strong arms, and upstairs to her room, her mother and father following with the doctor. It seemed a long wait to the 4 lads downstairs before the sound of feet on the stairs was heard. Mr. Mitchell came into the living room carrying Ria wrapped in a blanket and followed by Mrs. Mitchell and Dr. Earl. No one spoke, though the eyes of each of the boys held question marks. As she pulled on her coat, Mrs. Mitchell looked at her boys. "Ria has appendicitis. We're going to the hospital. I was going to guess that. We'll let you know as soon as we can how things are. Pray, boys." "We will, Mother," Ed assured her with a smile, though his manner was subdued. It was hours later when Ria woke from the anesthetic, feeling confused. She saw her parents standing nearby talking to someone with a white jacket on. "Mama." Mrs. Mitchell turned softly and came over to the bed. "I'm right here, Ria," she spoke softly, stroking Ria's hair back from her face. "How are you feeling?" Restlessly, Ria turned her head. The white walls of the hospital room looked cold and bleak. "I want to go home," she whimpered. Soon, sweetheart," her father said, coming over to hold her hand. "Dr. Friesen wants to keep you here a little longer." Wearily, Ria closed her eyes, but opened them as she heard her mother exclaim, "My cookies! Oh, Mitch, I forgot about the cookies in the oven. They'll be burnt or they could have caught the house on fire." Don't go that way." Mr. Mitchell laughed softly. "Oh, aren't you going to be a distraction? What a hairdo! Shall we?" "Oh, you're just like a kid in the candy store. Ooh, I hit that and I'll hit that. Guitar." Where are we, son?" "Emma, I don't think those cookies got burnt. But," he added with a grin, "I wouldn't expect to have any left. After all, we did leave 4 boys at home with them and no instructions not to eat them." Oh, do they really need them? A 19-year-old and under, but oh well. Emma Mitchell sighed. Those boys was all she said, but she shook her head and sat down next to Ria's bed. Her husband gave her a kiss. "I'll go check on things." Then, bending over the bed to leave a light kiss on Ria's pale face, he told her, "You get some rest, and I'll be back later, okay?" Ria mumbled something that was supposed to be words, and the next moment was sleeping. When she next awoke, the room was dim and her mother was gone. For a few minutes, Ria couldn't remember where she was, and then it came to her. She was in the hospital, and it was Christmas Eve. There was a dull ache in her side, not like the sharp pain of before, but still, it wasn't pleasant. She didn't like it. She didn't like the ache, the stark white of the room, and most of all, she didn't like being away from home on Christmas Eve. Oh, no. Just leave it. "I'll just go home," she spoke the words half aloud as she tried to sit up in bed, but to her surprise, the room seemed to spin around, and she felt as though she hadn't even the strength to lift one of the kittens at Grandma Foster's. Tears came to her eyes, but before she had a chance to start crying, the door to her room opened. I see you've decided to wake up after all, the cheery voice of Dr. Friesen greeted her. He turned on a light and came over to the bed. And how are you feeling? He asked. I want to go home. I think we can arrange that in a few days, he smiled at her. I don't want it in a few days. I want it now. Dr. Earl had been friends with Ria's family for several years, even before he left for medical school. Over the last few months, he had spent quite a bit of time with Evie Foster, Mrs. Mitchell's Mrs. Mitchell's youngest sister, and some of the gang were wondering how long it would be before they had a new uncle, so Ria felt at ease with him. Well, he replied with another smile, I'm afraid I can't let you go tonight. Why, young lady, I couldn't take the risk of letting you be run over by Santa's reindeer. If Earl's plan had been to bring a smile, even a small one, to the face of his patient, he succeeded. The faintest trace of a smile twitched at Ria's lips, the first one since earlier that morning. She knew Earl was teasing, yet she could also see that she would have to stay there in the hospital that night. Blinking back the tears which filled her eyes, Ria turned her head away, biting her lip. The little room was quiet for a minute. Then Dr. Friesen spoke softly. I'll be back to check on you in a little while, Ria. And he gave her hand a gentle squeeze. He was almost at the door when Ria stopped him. Wait! He paused and looked back. If I do everything I'm supposed to tonight, can I go to Grandma's tomorrow just for the Christmas party? Please, she begged. Slowly, Dr. Earl began to shake his head. The drive out there would be too rough for you tomorrow. Then, can't I go home tomorrow? Please? You have to let me go home for Christmas. Ria's voice rose in pitch and her hands clenched. Earl walked back over to the bed and sat down beside it. Ria, I want you to listen to me a minute. His voice was soothing but compelling. Obediently, Ria lay quietly watching his face. First, if you get yourself all worked up about this, you are only going to make yourself sick, and then I won't be letting you go home for longer. Second, I'm not going to promise anything right now. Let's wait and see how you're feeling in the morning, all right? Ria's eyes dropped and she didn't reply. How could this happen? Why today of all days in the year? It could at least have happened during school and giving her a vacation from it. And what about the big family party at Grandma and Grandpa Foster's? What's that, Aiden? What are they? What are they? What? Oh, smoke alarms. That was not fun, wasn't it? That was rude. Our smoke alarms went off last night. All three of them. So I was still working down here, frantically running upstairs, unplugging them all, pulling the batteries. And nobody cried. It was quite something. Aiden was up looking, but nobody cried. It was loud. I think Amber was in the room holding Alistair's ears or something. Yeah, I was at somewhere else, and Mommy had to deal with it, right? This happened a few weeks ago, too. I thought it was all the batteries, so I replaced them. They're battery powered, but they also plug in through the electrical. I don't know if they just have a problem. It's very frustrating and it's like makes you nervous to worry about them anymore. I mean, obviously they're important, but maybe I'll just have to get new ones. Anyway, what about her going to the Fosters? They'd have it without her. Everyone would be there except her. Oh, go to the table, buddy. Go to the table. Hot? Go to the table. Okay, go to the table. Oh, yeah. Would they even miss her? She wouldn't have any visitors tomorrow if she stayed here. That was for sure. Where am I? Oh, they would all be too busy having fun at the farm. She would just have to spend a lonely Christmas. Then she thought of home. Why, she'd miss Daddy reading the Christmas story tonight. And she wouldn't be there when they all opened gifts in the morning. She'd miss it all. There just wouldn't be any Christmas this year if she couldn't go home tomorrow. A hand was placed on her shoulder and a voice called her from her thoughts. Let's just wait and see about tomorrow, shall we? Rhea nodded, staring at the white wall until Dr. Earl left. Well, I can see where this is the worst part of the title. She must have fallen asleep because the next thing she knew, she was awakened by a sound. It was soft at first, then it grew louder, and Rhea could tell it was singing. The door to her room was open, and she could see lights flickering. The singing came closer. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight. Glories stream from heaven afar. Heavenly hosts sing Alleluia. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born. It was carolers. Rhea lay in her dark room listening to the sweet, well-blended music as it came to her from down the hall, and watching the faint flickering of the candles in the dim hallway. Carolers coming to cheer the hearts of those who couldn't go home for Christmas. The song ended, and all was still. Rhea lay with bated breath, but what would they sing next? Would they come past her room or just stay down the hall? Then the first notes of a new song came softly through the hushed hospital corridor. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Tears began to roll gently down Rhea's cheeks. She had nearly forgotten. Christmas wasn't just about presents under the tree or parties out at the farm. It was about Jesus' birth. He left his home in heaven to live on earth and to die so that all who believed on him could have everlasting life. The song continued to fill the lonely rooms with its message of cheer. The King of Kings lay thus in lowly manger, in all our trials, born to be our friend. He knows our need, to our weaknesses no stranger. Behold your King, before him low. I don't know how to do that part, sorry. Before him lowly bend. That verse isn't familiar to me, so my apologies for trying to figure that one out. Hold on a moment. You guys are making that sound good. They're having some oatmeal. Where was I? Oh, dear Jesus, Rhea whispered, thank you for coming to be my savior and my friend. I need one right now because I'm tired and lonely. I want to go home for Christmas, but I'm glad you will stay with me. And after all, it is your birthday. The carolers moved on down the hall, singing one song after another, the soft yet rich strains of the carols bringing comfort and joy to all who heard them. Rhea, drowsily watching the flickering candle lights of the singers, listened to their songs and thought about that first Christmas so many, many years ago. But before the quiet carols had quite faded into memories, she had fallen into a deep sleep. The light shining in the window awoke her the next morning, and for a minute she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came back to her. The pain in her side, the trip to the hospital, and most of all that today was Christmas Day. This was the day she had looked forward to for months, had counted the days to it long before others had even given it more than a passing thought. And now, here she was. She wondered what the day would be like. If it wasn't Christmas, I might have visitors, she thought. Merry Christmas, Ria. Ria turned her head to see Dr. Earl in the doorway. There was someone behind him. Mama! And Ria reached out her arms. Mrs. Mitchell hurried forward and gently held her daughter. I didn't think you'd come today, Ria whispered. Really? Would a child really think its own parent, our own mom, wouldn't come? And leave you all alone on Christmas? Mrs. Mitchell shook her head. We will have to leave you, but Daddy and I want to see you, and so did some others. Eagerly, Ria looked past her mother to see her father and all of her brothers gathered near the door. Merry Christmas, they greeted her. Ria could only smile a teary smile and squeeze her mother's hands. This was more than she had hoped for. Mr. Mitchell kissed her and the boys came over. Chris was the first to say something. Hey, Ria, we got snow last night. We did? Yep, about 4 inches. Not enough for a good snowball fight, though. At least it covered all the ugly melting snow, Johnny added. Chris, Ria said, make a snowball and throw it at Dave for me, will you? Never did get one thrown at him after the first snowfall when he dropped one down my neck. Chris grinned. Now that was the kind of thing that he would enjoy. I'll do more than throw it at him. I'll put one down his neck. And get yourself in a mess, Ed chuckled. Oh, Walt will help me, Chris spoke with confidence, and the others laughed. When it was time for the Mitchells to leave, Mrs. Mitchell offered to stay with Ria, but with a smile, Ria shook her head. No, Mama, they couldn't get along without you at Grandma's. Just give Grandma a kiss for me and tell her I'll be there as soon as someone. And she looked past her mother to the doorway where Dr. Friesen had just appeared. Lets me leave. Don't you know it is all just a plot to give me some Christmas cheer, since I can't go to the farm either? He asked with a grin. I guessed as much, Jimmy told him. We'll be sure to tell Evie you've got yourself a new girlfriend, Johnny laughed and ducked out of the room quickly. Go ahead, Earl called after him. Maybe she'd come out to visit. As he spoke, Dr. Friesen had been watching Ria. Now he glanced at the others and nodded his head towards the door. Feeling more tired than she ever remembered feeling, Ria closed her eyes as soon as her family left and only mumbled replies to the doctor's questions. I guess them operations can really take it out of you. Waking later. Yeah, you don't remember it? Oh, it did. Nobody woke up and screamed or cried, but got to him as fast as it could. Ace is asking about the fire alarms. Waking later, Ria felt refreshed and began to wonder what to do with herself. She knew that if she once began to think about what the others were doing at the farm, she'd begin to cry. But it was hard work. She could hear cheery voices in other rooms and wished she had someone to talk to her. The nurse who came in seemed much too busy to be bothered with one lonely little girl, and Dr. Friesen hadn't come by. For what seemed to her a long time, she lay in quiet solitude. If she could only look out the window, things wouldn't be so bad. But the curtains were drawn, and she couldn't open them from bed. True, the nurse had told her to ring the bell if she wanted anything, but Ria couldn't bring herself to do it. I'm afraid I will cry after all if something doesn't happen, she whispered to herself. This is the worst Christmas I've ever had, and the loneliest. Ria? A voice whispered. Turning her head quickly, Ria saw Ed peering in the half-open door. What? I brought something, he grinned and moved into the room. After him, Pete, Jack, Tom, Al, Will, and Phil came trooping in with smiles and Merry Christmas. For a moment, Rhea was speechless. Then her face broke into smiles, and though there were tears in her eyes, she laughed softly. How did you manage to get away? Oh, that was easy, Phil boasted, leaning against the wall with arms crossed, while Al pulled up a chair and sat down beside his favorite cousin. Will, Jack beckoned him to the window, the curtains of which he had opened. Stand here and get ready. What was going on? Rhea wondered, for Jack then slipped out of the door, making sure it was shut behind him. She didn't ask anything, for the others were talking. She didn't have long to wait, however, for soon Will said in low tones, There they are. Then Phil took over. Al, Ed, put our coats over Rhea. It won't do for her to catch cold. Tom, guard that door. Will, open the window. There. Now, Pete, you have the rope. Let it out. Ed, Will, give us a hand here. What's going on? Sounds like Paul being let out of the basket. Something was up, Rhea knew, but didn't dare ask, for the merry twinkle in her brother's eyes, as well as the grins on all the faces, told her she would soon know. There was a soft scuffling noise outside, and Phil called quietly, Shh, Ed, give him a hand. Suddenly, Walt's face appeared in the window, and his low but cheerful, Merry Christmas, Rhea, was no sooner spoken than Ed was half leaning out the window again, and Jimmy crawled in. Not quite sure what was going on, Rhea stifled a giggle as Winston almost fell into the room head first. Sorry, Win, Pete spoke in hushed tones. Winston just grinned and began brushing the snow off his coat. One lad followed another until at last Jack, the last of the gang, climbed in, the rope was pulled in, and the window was shut. Okay, they're coming in. Okay. Sorry, Tom told her. We couldn't get the others on such short notice. Shaking her head, Rhea giggled softly. I should have known you would think of something. Now, if only you could think of some way to smuggle me out of here and take me to the farm, I'd be the happiest girl in town. Jack, always one for adventure and excitement, was ready to try, but the common sense of the older members vetoed the plan. It would be hazardous to our health if we even tried it, Pete said, looking at his brother, and Jack subsided with a shrug. Letting her eyes wander with delight over the boys, brushing snow off their coats and filling the room, which only a quarter of an hour before had been so empty, she spied Dave watching her with a mischievous look. Suddenly, he pulled out a snowball from his pocket and began tossing it up in the air and catching it again, all the while moving slowly closer and closer to her bed. Just when Rhea felt sure he would throw it at her, Johnny suddenly caught the ball and, grasping Dave by his coat collar, shoved him over to where Jack and Pete were standing. Here, Jack, sit on him if he doesn't behave. Then he opened the window and tossed the ball out where it belonged. How are you feeling, Rhea? Ray and Fred had made their way through the throng of lads to Rhea's bedside. Still not great, but much better since you all came. Why didn't you all come in through the door? Ray smiled his easy smile. There's a limit on how many visitors someone can have, and we're a few too many, he winked. Besides, Jimmy said, leaning against the wall, it's more exciting this way. And thus more fun, Phil added. The talk in the room was almost continuous, and all Rhea had to do was listen and ask a question now and then, but even that last was hardly necessary, with 15 boys standing and sitting about the room, ready to fill in any gaps in the day's happenings. Rhea didn't hear much of what was said, for she was busy thinking. She had never realized just how special the whole gang was to her, nor how much she meant to them. A warm feeling stirred at her heart as she glanced at the faces so familiar, and thought of all the ones who weren't there. So many people to love her and care enough to make sure she didn't spend a lonely day. Then her thoughts drifted to Mary on that first Christmas morning. She had been far away from family and friends. Only her husband had been there. What did Rhea have to complain about? Jesus had been with her all the time, and Dr. Earl had come in often, and the nurse and her family had stopped by, and now the gang had come. Rhea Mitchell, she told herself, you don't have any reason to feel sorry for yourself. All at once, Phil, who was standing by the door, hissed, hush! Instantly, the room became so silent that the voice of Dr. Earl Friesen could be distinctly heard down the hall talking to someone. The lads looked at one another. Was he going to come there? What would he say when he discovered the entire room full of boys? We should have kidnapped Evie, Winston whispered softly. She could have kept Earl occupied. I'm afraid it's too late now, and Tom glanced at Ed. Some of you could hold the door shut while the rest of us escape out the window, Dave suggested, only to have his brother Jack murmur that they'd leave him to hold the door. Lying in bed, Rhea didn't know if she should laugh at the gang's predicament or not. Before she could decide, the door to her room opened, and in walked Dr. Friesen. No trace of surprise showed in his face at the room full of silent boys. Without a word, he shut the door behind him, crossed the room, and looked out the window. Every eye was on him. What would he say? After a long moment of intense silence, in which the lads were beginning to grow uncomfortable, the doctor remarked quietly, I'd tell you to depart the way you came in, but since this is the second story and the snow is rapidly melting, unless you want to end up in a room here yourself, you'd better leave by the back entrance, and make it quickly. The boys took the hint, and with quick farewells to Rhea and hopes that she soon would be better, they departed. Ed lingered after the others. Don't fret about missing Christmas, sis, Ed whispered as he stooped to drop a kiss on her cheek. We're waiting until you get back home. Oh, cool. Putting her arms around her brother's neck, she returned the kiss and said, Thank you. Tell the rest of the gang I said that this... Tell the rest of the gang I said this has been my worst and best Christmas ever. The end. Well, that was a new one to me. Good job, Rebekah. Well, on that note, I kind of wanted to... I meant to look through the story to see if there was a Christmas song in it, and I didn't go far enough to catch the Silent Night reference. So I wonder if I could just find Silent Night, pop it on the screen, and we could finish with that, and then I'll say my goodbyes. And I could have some breakfast with everyone. Where's the S's? Ah, there we go. Still haven't changed this one, but oh well, maybe it's more familiar to everyone. The fourth verse is not familiar to me, but 1 second. Okay, what key should we do? Maybe we can pull this over here. Yes, Aiden? No. Aiden was pointing at my dirty Kleenexes, and he's like, Daddy, is this how many songs you did? Peace. Is that too low? Peace. Peace. Peace in heaven. You kind of have to go along this song, so here we go. Let's do Silent Night, shall we, Alistair? Yeah, it's a little boy. Just don't touch the camera. Don't touch Alistair. Alistair. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. No. Go get your hands washed, Alistair. Go to Mommy. Get your hands washed. There's a little oatmeal on one. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sound, glory stream from heaven afar, heavenly hosts sing hallelujah. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born. Silent night, holy night, Son of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth, Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. Silent night, holy night, all is dark, save the light. Yonder where they sweet vigils keep, o'er the babe who in silent sleep rest in heavenly peace, rests in heavenly peace. Well, thank you everyone who is on the live stream, if there are any of you, which I think there might be a couple left, but thank you for joining in. And I guess that's it for this morning's reading. Hope you enjoyed that story. And may you have a blessed day. In this strange, crazy, and mixed up world, which is doesn't have a whole lot of hope left to itself. Just thinking of a chat I was having with someone the other day, and just the things people can think of other people, and especially the world leaders or those in authority, and going, well, are there still what truth is coming from people, and what's the grounding for truth? And it just was reminding me of the Lord, and him saying that it's been on my mind a bit this Christmas, him being the way, the truth, and the life. And no one goes to the Father except through him. And I was also being especially struck by the angel telling Joseph, you shall call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Not He'll live the life of a carpenter and be a good little boy, and he'll just live and fulfill his dream that way. No, he will save his people from their sin. And he's not your savior if you don't know that you're a sinner. Just something for anybody watching to think about. Are you a sinner? Do you need a savior? That's the only hope that I know of for anyone. So may you take care, everyone. May you seek after the Lord. I guess I could leave you with that note. And I might have another story for tomorrow. I don't know. I'll check with Rebekah. Those were the 3 she sent me. And if there's another one, I'll let you know. But take care, everyone. Till next time. Bye-bye. Goodbye.